It's a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. All that remains of centuries-old temples and shrines are mounds of rubble. Structures which previously stood the test of time could not withstand the impact of nature's wrath. The one exception is the most iconic Hindu shrine in Kathmandu, the Pashupatinath temple, which has survived unscathed.
Kathmandu's iconic Darbar Square reduced a picture of devastation in seconds. And centuries of heritage and architecture of Nepal is now only a pile of debris.
राज दरबार राजाभिषेक का साक्षी ये महल, ये स्थान आज भूकंप से इस बुरी तरह प्रभावित है कि इसकी हर दीवार में दरार दिखाई पड़ती है और ये एक संस्कृति का प्रतीक है, नेपाली संस्कृति का।
As Nepal comes to terms with its monumental loss, history was among the casualties of the aftershocks in Kathmandu, as little remains of the landmarks that once dotted the city's skyline. The Bhimsen Tower, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, flattened to rubble within seconds, and 9 stories of heritage came crashing down as nature unleashed its fury. As the city lies in ruins, ravaged beyond repair, there's one structure that has stood the test of nature's wrath.
A very famous icon, Pashupatinath temple here at Kathmandu, where you can see that people are continuously coming in. It's been a major disaster. There's fear that there could be more tremors. People are coming here for prayers, and people are really very disturbed since they are unable to sleep. They're out on streets all night. They are not going to their offices. They're not going to their shops. All the businesses have been badly affected. So clearly, people are seeking forgiveness here.
Nepal's tragedy is still unfolding, and its most ancient city has lost its most famous structures. The splinters of wood and the dust of broken concrete is all that remains of Kathmandu's past. With Atir, Manogya and Sanjay in Kathmandu, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Let's cut across live now to Headlines Today's Jugal Purohit, who had gone to Barpak yesterday. Now, Jugal, in your reports, we have seen the absolute devastation at that quake epicenter of Barpak. Just describe to our viewers what exactly did you see there. Just narrate to our viewers what sort of devastation did you actually see there.
Well, Sanket, it was a special Mi-17 V5 sortie, the first such sortie to actually land at Barpak and deliver aid of any kind to the people. And when we saw the scenes from the air itself, it was very clear that the village was nothing more than a pile of rubble. After landing, you'd be amazed to know that of the 1,600 homes which used to dot the landscape of Barpak, only 20 remain standing till now. The villagers have a list of 78 people. There is foul smell in the air from rotting animal carcasses, as well as the inhabitants who could not make it out of their homes in time. It's a village which is, as I said, nothing but a pile of debris, rubble, and unfortunately those who are living there under those orange and blue tarpaulin sheets have no means whatsoever to get themselves heard. There's no connectivity there. There are no roads to bring them to a main city to even protest. So that's the irony of it all. Areas completely cut off, having no way of getting themselves heard. And what we did in Barpak, as our viewers will see later on, is a basic detailed account of just what it means and what has happened to the place which saw this earthquake just 2 kilometers beneath its feet. It was the epicenter of the earthquake which has shaken at least 4 countries. I'm now joined by our managing editor Rahul Kawal. He's been here for the last 2 days. Rahul, you also witnessed a lot of operations, especially where injured people were being brought out from interior areas. We've been reporting on Kathmandu. How bad is the situation inside and how easy is it to even get out?
I think, Jugal, the focus now is on trying to ensure some form of synergy between the various global donors, whether these are international governments, whether these are private aid agencies. The Nepalese government is quite concerned. I had long conversations running late into the last night about how there's duplication of effort. Everybody seems to be sending the same basic material, whereas what they really need, from what senior people in the Nepalese government told me, and that's what they want to highlight at this time again and again. Don't send us what you think is obvious. Ask us first what we need most and try and send that. They need orthopedic doctors. They need experts on sanitation and sewerage, because that's a big problem right now. They need pakka tents, not just trampolines, they need proper tents. That's what they need. And they need medicines, and they need bottled water. Those are some of the key challenges, Jugal, because as you saw, you were at the technical area from where these sorties were taking place. It's huge congestion. Some of our colleagues were to return to Delhi. Their flights haven't been able to take off. Several of the flights which are supposed to come in with NDRF personnel couldn't come in yesterday because of immense congestion at the airport. There's a capacity constraint to absorb this relief. The Nepalese government is struggling to be able to use it, and on top of that, the other problem is that you're seeing a duplication of effort. A lot of the same material being sent in, what they need most not coming in at the speed at which they like.
Okay. Yes,
now,
Sanket,
Jugal, this is a very, very fascinating and interesting point that has in fact been made by Rahul Kamal. If you could just talk with him in greater detail. We also here at Headlines Today, we are going to put these things together. What sort of material has in fact reached what Nepal needs right now in terms of material? Just go through that list all over again, so that for the benefit of our viewers, for those donors who are wishing or willing to donate or give stuff, relief material to Nepal, for the Indian establishment as well as other establishment, what exactly does Nepal need at this moment?
Absolutely, that is in fact the need of the hour. Rahul, what Sanket is essentially saying is that for our viewers, a lot many of whom want to actually donate to the Nepalese citizens, can you please take us through with what you've discussed with the Nepalese authorities? What should they do and what they should not do?
I think the one clear thing is to try and route this through one of the government agencies. Aditya Thackeray, Uddhav Thackeray's son, has been in touch with us. They've had problems trying to send doctors and relief material here because they're doing it as a private initiative. I think the more this is routed through the government, through the armed forces, through the Ministry of Health Affairs, the more effective this is likely to be. Private aid is important undoubtedly, but it is going to be that much tougher to ensure that it reaches the right place. Now, what you don't want is, if you're sitting at home sending clothes, sending water, sending medicines, is for this to pile up at the Pokhara airport or at the Kathmandu airport. Route it through one of the big agencies, whether it's a Red Cross, whether it is one of the other government agencies or big private agencies. That's the way to do it. My fear is a lot of this entrepreneurial, personalized help might not end up reaching people who need it. And I can tell you that despite what China is doing, Israel is doing, Germany, France, the United States and India, there is still a lot of help that's required. The scale of this strategy. Yesterday, we were told that the death toll could go up very quickly to 5,000. They expect it to go up even further. There are villages yesterday, Jugal, as I'm sure you would have seen on the sortie to Barpak, where no one has reached. We're just finding out about particular villages that are badly impacted, where some people are alive, they're young, they've been able to trek back and inform the district headquarters that they're badly off. There are dozens of districts, dozens of villages where nobody is reached at all. You have no idea how badly off things are there. So people need help. But I suggest route it through one of the big agencies. If you try and send it yourself, it might just fall through the cracks.
But Sanket, there's also a point. You see, yesterday we witnessed an absolutely astounding scene. We saw the Nepalese army coming on the streets, sweeping and cleaning them. When we asked them why were they doing that, they said there are no municipal workers, there are no low-level employees to do the job on the ground. And that's the reason why we are under orders to execute tasks as menial as this at a time when every single soldier is required. Rahul, don't you feel the bureaucracy?
I think the Nepalese army has shown exemplary grit, determination, patriotism, selfless spirit. They're just like the Indian army. The manner in which they've taken to this task, they're leading it from the front. The civilian government completely at odds. We've seen senior generals where we were, the DGMO was over there himself, on the ground, in the control room, monitoring these operations, right down to the Jawan. The spirit of service can be felt, it's palpable. And also, Jugal, the interoperability, as you've seen so often in these rescue operations, even when there are Indian agencies operating, there's turf wars, there's ego, there's gamesmanship, the ability, the desire to want to project. But with the Nepalese army and the Indian army, the understanding is so high and the respect is so much that they're working seamlessly together. It's not about whether you help them, or it's about actually ensuring that help reaches those who need it the most.
Absolutely. The point that I was making was that on the lower level, the civilian bureaucracy is missing, and that's what the people are telling us. They're not finding municipal workers, they're not finding the police. How much can an army do? Of course, as Rahul said, the Nepalese army is leading from
Absolutely.
the front
and you know,
and back
Jugal,
by the Indian army.
and you know,
the Indian
Jugal,
Air
that point that you were mentioning, you and Rahul were actually mentioning that, you know, the army is apparently doing job which is considered menial. At a time like this, Jugal, don't you feel that cleanliness is the most important thing? Because, you know, pile of garbage or dust, or, you know, this is going to lead to serious health concerns at a time like this. So it's very important to keep clean.
That's the very point. That's the very point, Sanket. So what one is trying to stress is that the civilian bureaucracy needs to step in. Most people, the municipal workers, the police, they are absent, and that's the reason why an army, which of course has to do a lot of important work, has also to do this, and there's a capacity limit on what can be done. And right now, what the people are telling us is that they want basic services and they want the civilian employees to return.
One of the things that has happened, Jugal, is that there's paranoia and fear that has gripped all of Nepal. There were so many people. We were anchoring out of Darbar Square last night. Wherever we would walk, there were people out in every open area, sleeping the night there. In community halls behind us, people just refusing to go to their buildings. Now, some of this is real fear. People who live in old dilapidated buildings, those buildings have developed great cracks, it's best for them to be out. But there were some people I met who were living in Pakka buildings. Some of them were high-rises. But because of what happened on the first day, with that earthquake that measured 7.9 on the Richter scale, they're so petrified that they just don't want to take the risk. There are people who could open their shops, but they're saying, we'll suffer the damage, but we don't want to risk our lives. We want to be with our parents, we want to be with our children, we want to be with our loved ones. That fear needs to subside. And I tell you, Sanket, that even last night, there were tremors. There were tremors at different times of the night, and what happens is that these tremors play a mind game. I don't know if it's happening with you or not, Jugal. Some of them are real, you feel them and they hit you. Some of them you imagine have struck, but actually they haven't. And certain times you feel, okay, it's just your mind imagining these tremors, but somebody tells you, did you feel that tremor? I think that's the fear, that's the paranoia.
Fear is the
that's
word. You're
gripping
basically
the people
talking about
of
fear.
Kathmandu and all of Nepal, which is why they simply don't want to take the risk of going back home.
Absolutely.
And Sanket, let me just also conclude by saying that even dogs barking in the distant neighborhood is enough for people to get out of their buildings thinking that it's an earthquake.
Absolutely. Before we let you and Rahul go, my last question to you, Jugal and Rahul. You have been getting us these ground reports. I mean, it's really, really painful to put them out, in the sense that heart-wrenching stories of how people are managing to survive, living on the edge of hope. What to expect today? Where will you be actually going to file your reports today, between you and Rahul?
Well, Rahul, Sanket wants to know that we've covered a lot of ground and we've shown the real situation. What more is to be expected from today onwards?
The officer in charge of the Indian Army's operations told me at least for the next 7 days, the Indian Army and the Air Force will run these sorties. The government in Nepal is telling us that the first effort is to try and rescue. The possibility that there could be people still alive in the debris is now highly remote. There might be just the odd instance where somebody is stuck in an open area where the building around him has collapsed. The NDRF teams are looking really hard for these people. But the effort right now is rescue. The Nepalese government tells me that in the next couple of days, the rescue will end, and then it needs to come to relief. Then starts the task of rehabilitation. They haven't yet been able to think this through, because this whole process is a three-stage process: relief, rescue, relief, and rehabilitation. So we're currently in the rescue stage still. That phase will end in the next day or two. Then you need to provide relief supplies to these people. You need to take care of sanitation, sewerage. You need to ensure that there is no mass epidemic. Is one of the real fears, because there are bodies that are lying strewn around. These people don't have medicines. They don't have water supplies. It's a big problem, and ensuring that the right medicines, the right medical care reaches the most far-flung villages is again one of the big challenges for the Nepalese government. And I'm afraid that they haven't even yet, because I asked a few questions. So what are the lessons you've learned? How will you ensure that, a lot of the building norms here in Kathmandu, Jugal, as you've seen, are flouted, as in all South Asian cities. It's an urban mess, and that's also one of the reasons why Kathmandu is as vulnerable as it is. They haven't yet started thinking about rehabilitation. The focus currently is just on rescue and then on relief.
Absolutely, Sanket. And the 6 Indian Air Force helicopters and the numerous sorties that larger planes like C-17, C-130s, IL-76 of the Air Force are making are also being, aided by different air forces like the US Air Force, the Sri Lankan Air Force, Pakistan, all of them sending in their material. It's going to be a very, very long haul, Sanket. And as Rahul just pointed out, rescue is over, relief, rehabilitation will be much slower, much longer a process, Sanket.
Absolutely. Jugal as well as Rahul, many thanks for joining us at this moment. Of course, in a time of tragedy of unimaginable proportions, it's the forces that actually do a remarkable job. And that's exactly what our team on the ground is also reporting.